Hey friends, welcome back. I want to give you an update. What's going on in the markets today? And let's just jump right in. So this is a comment coming in from Tesla fanboys and fangirls. This is from Tesla fan 9519. Yes, that's their username. And they say, you'll go down in history as the biggest clown on YouTube. That's referring to me. GM is getting out because they have zero chance to compete. They will license Tesla FSD, and you'll find a way how that's also a negative thing as you continue to be wrong again and again. Smiley face. This is another comment coming in from P Clutch. They got the little icon 1776 as their user icon, and they say here, I guess the stock price has nothing to do with GM canceling its self-driving project. You're all delusional. That's referring to you in the community. Every car will use licensed Tesla FSD. All of you have Trump and Elon derangement syndrome. And we also have this from Steve, and Steve writes, you are so naive. Your interpretation of what's going on is a joke. So I had to share these comments with you because essentially this is your average viewer on YouTube. And if you want to be popular on YouTube and social media, this kind of stuff, you appeal this sort of audience and tell them that all their stocks are going to go to the moon and Elon is the total genius and everyone's going to be rich, right? What I try to tell you guys on this channel is just a fuller picture of everything. You can agree or disagree, but I guess you can all agree. I guess I'm a joke. So anyway, I wanted to share stuff, and guys, I always appreciate you hanging out because it's I as many people always comment is the world out there is insane, full of insane kind of people, and it's great to have just real conversations about this stuff. Like a real people. So for example, this is part of the conversation today. Kathy Wood's ARK sells 21.8 million Tesla shares, buys 18.3 million Tempest AI stock. So Kathy Wood is selling out her Tesla. And one of the things that I always caution you for anyone who's on social media watching news, etc., just make sure that whoever you watch and this channel or other channels that you're getting a full picture of everything, and so you have a general idea of what's going on, opposed to just very tunnel vision stuff. So that's why we talk about a lot of things on this channel, not just how awesome and how rich you're all going to be. So for example, there's a couple of headlines that caught my attention today, and when you put them two together, it sort of, how can I say, illuminates what's going on in markets right now. So first headline, Adobe reports strong earnings, but stock falls on disappointing outlook. Now put that together with this one. Broadcom shares rise 11%. Company says AI revenue more than tripled this year. So the way that I see this, you have two different types of companies that are trying to profit off AI. So in Adobe's situation, right, they do Photoshop, they do software and packaging, and I think they've really gone hardcore into subscription model. And essentially they're trying to tag on this AI services onto their subscriptions. Microsoft is doing the same thing as well. And what I've told you guys all along is keep an eye on is the consumer going to be willing to pay that extra amount of money every single month. And right now, the same way that, say, streaming. So for example, maybe y'all got Netflix, maybe it's $5, $10, 15, whatever, package that you choose. Then you got Disney Plus, and you got Warner Brothers, and HBO Max, and Hulu, and YouTube is another one, like tons of subscription services. And the question is, like, how many of these services are you going to want to subscribe to? The same way with, say, all these AI choices out there. So, Chat GPTs and Adobes and blah, 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 right? How many of these are you going to want to subscribe to? And I think there's going to be a limit to how many people choose. With the streaming one, I think many people will choose more than one streaming service, right? And you guys let me know how many you choose. With AI, though, maybe people will only choose maybe one, maybe zero, or maybe two at max. Like maybe we'll have one for work and one at home or whatever. But I don't think there's going to be as much people out there subscribing to all of these as the industry thinks. And so Adobe came out with their earnings report, for 2025, and it was like, our revenue is a bit light compared to what Wall Street had expected. So their stock went down. I think it was like 10, 13% or something like that, double digits. So today, whereas in the opposite was Broadcom, they sell chips to companies like, for example, Adobe, etc. Basically, they're the picks and shovels play. So you have all these, companies out there trying to cash in on offering AI services, and then you have other companies who are trying to basically sell chips to said, people. And it's kind of like the California gold rush. Right? You got people out there going out west, to dig up the gold. Then you got people selling picks and shovels, and the picks and shovel play seems to be the better play at the moment. As you guys know, Nvidia was the ones who were the big winners this past year, and Broadcom just had good earnings. And what's interesting is when you think about this though, is what's going to happen in 2025 when companies come out and, for example, say, hey, we're just not making money. We invested a whole bunch of money into AI. We offered these new services and the customers just aren't showing up. We even spent money on advertising and we're losing money there, and the customers just aren't, justifying the means. So they're going to cut back spending, and then obviously they would cut, buying chips, et cetera. And then it might start to really bleed out into the rest of the market. The other thing too with chips is that it tends to be cyclical. So for example, let's say Adobe makes a big investment in an AI data center, right? Because they have to, build these new infrastructure to make sure that they can sell the service, to make sure they work at a timely speed, et cetera. And then that's all they need. They don't need to upgrade it once. Or maybe it's fast enough to, maybe let's say their services do work out. Let's say they have a steady revenue stream. They will essentially keep those chips working as long as possible, and then maybe 4 years from now upgrade. This is something that is a common thing in hardware sales, is that it's cyclical, right? You don't need to buy a new upgrade every single year, and that's going to be the interesting thing, is what is the life cycle of these new chips coming out. Now Nvidia has basically always tries to come up with something new, of some sort of reason why you need to buy a chip every year, but if the profits isn't there for companies, say like with Adobe, they're not going to invest anymore. And so that's sort of where we put these two things together. And my opinion, I think the AI stuff is pretty hypey. But to be fair, if you saw my video yesterday, the stuff is getting better. It is getting better, but again, do I want to spend money on said things, and et cetera? And companies like, for example, I did a report we talked about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago already or something like that, where people inside Microsoft, and this was all kind of anonymously, so they want to keep their jobs, but they were saying that they feel uncomfortable with all of the promises that Microsoft is saying that their AI can do, right? And then the other thing that meaning that like Microsoft's promising, oh yes, you're going to be so more productive and you're going to be so awesome, et cetera. And the people on the inside are like, well, we work with this stuff. It's not that great. And yet marketing wants to keep selling you the AI products over at Microsoft. Some companies are just like, it's just not worth the investment. And then the other thing that companies try to do, and use a Microsoft example just to put us all together, is then they try to take AI label onto every single one of their software suites. So like, for example, the example they gave was like, PowerPoint, and now they'll put a little label with AI, and it doesn't really improve PowerPoint that much. There might be some sort of function in there, but will it end up being like Clippy? If you guys remember what that is, for those of you who are old enough, that was like this little Microsoft, how can I say, icon-y cartoon character, and it would always like try to offer you help, but mostly people just find it annoying and clicked it away. And in my opinion, like for Apple, for example, I have their new Apple Intelligence, I think that's what they're calling it. So AI, Apple Intelligence. They just updated it again, but I don't know. I couldn't figure out any difference other than I was a bit annoyed because they changed their email program to where now has all these different categories. And I hate it when email boxes do that. I just want an inbox. I don't want 5 different categories of email. But you guys may disagree with me on that one. I just don't like it. And then the other thing they use it for is like it summarizes your emails as they come in, but I don't know. I don't really want that either. I just prefer just to see if someone wrote me something, what is the subject line that they wrote me? I just want to see their email. So I don't know. Like I said, I was telling you guys about this stuff before. It is getting better, but I think they're trying to force the AI features onto you. But to be fair, like in my opinion, if I can tell my phone remotely to set alarms, turn off alarms, which I do, it's actually pretty useful. The alarm stuff or the timer stuff, or ask it the weather, ask it some general questions, have it do math, that kind of stuff. So some stuff it works out fine, but not necessarily all day every day, and nor do I want to pay for said thing. So I think this is going to be an interesting going forward. Regarding the AI markets, this kind of stuff. So the big tech companies have been the ones that have been basically carrying the market all year. And this was an interesting headline. I'll read it to you guys. It says, S&P 500's record rally shows cracks as most stocks left out. It was something like 9 days in a row to where more stocks declined than went up. So that last couple of weeks, basically. And if you take a look at this chart, so this is the past week. And so, like for example, here Google and Tesla were up, big the past week, right? And they're fairly big companies, so like their gains make up a large portion of all the gains in say the S&P 500, right? So if you have an index fund, you'll notice, hey, my stocks are going up, awesome. But if you look at all the companies as a whole, many companies are actually had a poor week, right? It's just that the Teslas and the Googles and the Metas, Amazons are just such a large portion of of our index, and so if they slow down, that'll start to really show up in your investing. Also, which is actually kind of interesting, U.S. household, I guess, wealth climbs, right? So and a lot of this stuff is paper gains, and so they refer to this as the wealth effect, right? So you feel like, oh my god, my retirement's going up, and my holdings are all going up. I'm doing absolutely fantastic, but it's unrealized gains, paper gains. But if you do see that, maybe people out there will be shopping more this Christmas season. We'll see when the numbers come in, and that'll keep the ball going. I'll say this, but not everyone necessarily has all of these assets, and my opinion going forward in 2025 with all the new Trump policies, et cetera, I think inflation is going to increase, and I think we're going to see a continuing division between rich and poor. It's going to get wider. This is just how our system is. If you want to build wealth and our current system, it's not just working a job. You have to also invest because your assets can grow quite well. So that's what I'm showing you guys this for, is that yes, household net worths are going up, but it's not everyone is enjoying that. We still have to deal with inflation. The PPI came a little bit hot today. And we also have this in Europe. They're worried about growth over there. They lowered their central bank. It was like, I think it was 25 basis points. There was talk that some of the people on the committee was thinking 50 basis points. So essentially what they're worried about now is like, well, obviously inflation is a worry for everyone everywhere, but they're more concerned about growth there. And what's so interesting is if you listen to the talk of the Fed and say the USA, they keep trying to paint a rosy scenario. And I always laugh because like so I'm not in USA right now. I'm in Korea, and I can just tell you it's very noticeable here that things are slowing down. And I can't speak to Europe. So for those of you who are in Europe, just let me know, like, what's your general mood of things? Like, how do you feel the economy, the markets, like, just how do you feel about your life? And when the European Central Bank is like, man, we could have cut 50 basis points, like things are kind of looking dire, and essentially you're cutting rates there to get investment going, get things going again. And the problem with Europe, though, obviously you have the war in Ukraine and Russia that's really dragging down, and you also have the population imbalance, which we have the same problem all around the world. Here in Korea, I mentioned before in a prior video, but I'm mentioning it if you guys didn't see that. We went to lunch yesterday. I wasn't feeling that well. I wanted to get some chicken soup, and it's like a really good chicken soup place. And we got there, and the restaurant was closed. They were actually had a moving truck there, and they were moving the tables out. And I was like, what the heck? And we've actually seen this more than once, to where places we like to go close. The big department store here in Busan, one of them is going to be closing. They're going to rezone that to something else. And this is something that it's really noticeable. So I think maybe next year here, at least here in Korea, we'll really start to see some major pain in the economy. That's just my guess. I can't tell you exact month or something like that. And it's funny because true story. My wife's mom, my wife's mom called my wife Yeji, because we've seen her on the channel, and she's like, "Hey, are you guys buying gold? You need to be buying gold." And it was funny because I literally just saw a report that the Koreans here are like selling out Korean stocks. I guess they're buying gold and they're buying S&P 500. So it's kind of funny when and that's what they always say is, when you start to hear from your hairdresser and your mom and stuff like that, start telling them to do something, then that means it may be the top. So I'm not a big gold buyer myself. It is popular in Asia. For me, I just prefer, I'm fine with your index. I'm fine with CDs. I'm fine with dividend stocks. If you're curious, essentially we just have different funds, right? So like a dividend stock fund, a bond fund, S&P 500 thing, and just put money in different things depending on where you think things are. I'm fine with just holding cash also. Sometimes people feel like you have to deploy all of your money all the time. I don't think necessarily that's necessary, because sometimes there's an emergency, right? You may need cash for medical thing or whatever. And then also too, it's just something about being able to sleep well at night is just really, really good. It doesn't mean you stop investing, because as I just showed you guys, the household wealth in USA keeps going up and up and up and up. But I don't think personally think it's sustainable. I feel like valuations are too high. But if you just take a look at, that's why I always use the example of Warren Buffett. It's not like he sells all his stock, all the time. Everything, freaks out because it's hard to time the market. But he is sitting on a pretty high level of cash. So that's sort of the advice is, and you guys, you got to do what makes sense for you. We just track everything. And also, I always like to hear and talk with you in the community, because I feel like we actually have real discussion here on in the comments. You guys will see each other. The more you hang out in the community, you'll recognize people's names, and you'll know when there's real conversations or not. You'll know. You'll see it, because people will refer to very timely stuff, opposed to just people calling other people a joke, etc. So I hope this is useful and helpful for you. I'd like to hear your thoughts and any one of the topics that we talked about in this video, and I'll catch you all next time.